When you get to be part of seeing a child who has experienced the worst of humanity step into a safe house program, be told you are known, seen, and loved, not because of anything that you could ever do for anybody else, but just because you are a human being who has value, dignity, and worth, like that is the most beautiful moment that you can imagine. And we get to be part of those stories every single day.
All right, well, welcome back to another episode of Good Business. Today is going to be a little bit different from the norm because we're going to be diving deep into one of the most horrendous issues that our country, that our world is facing. And today we've got a representative from the Safe House Project. Brittany, thank you so much for making the trek down all the way from the Northeast to be with us in Austin, Texas today. I really do appreciate the time.
My pleasure. It's just a great day here in Texas.
Yeah. Well, this is a heavy topic, guys, so buckle up, but it is absolutely imperative that you tune into this because we're going to be talking about not just the issue, because you've probably seen some movies, you've probably read some literature or seen the news about this concept and this issue of child sex trafficking. And I know every single person who is a human being listening in on this today is in agreement. This should end. But the question is how? How do we bring about that end? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're also going to talk about breaking through growth ceilings as a nonprofit, because nonprofits, they normally are known for making a great localized impact. There's some progress and then they stall out. They hit a growth ceiling and they're not able to achieve the mission that they set out to accomplish on the grander scale. And Brittany is an example of achieving that growth track, breaking through ceilings, and quite influential, I might say, in achieving that. And so, Brittany, would you mind just sharing a little bit about the mission and the vision of Safe House?
Yeah, of course. Safe House Project, we are a national organization combating domestic child trafficking here. And really our heart stems from the idea that every year 300,000 American kids will be trafficked right here in our own backyard. And so our call is really to come alongside communities in order to see victims of child trafficking exit a trafficking situation, get them into a safe and secure program where they can really heal from the trauma that they have endured. So every day we get to be on the hope side of a really dark issue.
So you connect the dots
We
for
do.
the children that are coming out of this environment. Can you walk me through a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, of course. So every day we receive calls from around the country, from whether that's law enforcement, child protective services, or other nonprofits who have identified a child who is being exploited in our community. And through that, we have the opportunity to really walk alongside that victim of child trafficking and help get them into a safe house program. Safe house programs are more than a shelter and a warm bed. They're a place where individuals go to truly heal. There's life skills training, there's education, there's medical attention, there's therapy. There's everything that they need to rebuild their life within a really loving and supportive environment. And so our programs offer over 174,000 safe nights to victims of child trafficking every single year.
Wow. So let's talk about the problem a little bit,
Yeah.
because that's incredible that you're able to offer that number of safe nights. Um, how many safe nights are needed to end the problem? I know that that's a
Yeah.
lot of math on the back of the napkin there, but is it 175,000?
No, unfortunately, this is an issue that is a legal industry, and so it's so hard to truly understand how many individuals are being affected every year. But the data really shows that we're probably only at 1% of individuals being identified who are experiencing exploitation and trafficking. And so we need to increase capacity, honestly, almost 100-fold to even get near the number of safe nights that we need to provide to individuals in our communities.
Wow. Wow. So that can be a little overwhelming.
It can.
Yeah. So can you walk us through the problem that we're facing right now? What's stopping this from happening?
Yeah, right now we are at a really pivotal moment in history where we have the opportunity, I believe, to eradicate child trafficking. But it really takes a multi pronged approach from communities choosing to raise awareness about the issue, understand, and really educate themselves on how to identify individuals who are experiencing trafficking.
Mm,
What most people don't realize is that 50% of child trafficking victims will first be trafficked by a family member.
mm,
And so, this is really what we've seen historically as child sexual abuse that is now being monetized for financial gain.
mm,
And so, when we start to maybe increase the aperture in our understanding of what this is and who it affects and the vulnerabilities of individuals in our community, we have a better chance of seeing individuals who need that help. So every day we're working to really educate people on how to identify and report suspected trafficking. We're working to give our law enforcement, our educators, our healthcare providers the tools that they need in order to effectively report, but also knowing that they have a handoff to a partner who
mm,
really will work to advocate for these victims and stand in the gap. And so that's really what we get to do, which is a beautiful role that we play. But I think what's important is to realize that this is honestly not an issue that can be solved by one organization, one
mm,
person, even one community. It really requires everybody doing a small part
mm.
in a very big puzzle
Yeah.
to really figure out a way forward. And so our heart is really to cast big vision, to say, here are the ways that you, as an individual member and community, can help in this larger vision of eradication.
Mm,
You can be part of making sure that vulnerable kids in your community are protected, that we prevent this before it even continues to flourish.
mm,
And how do we really flip the script and get ourselves attuned to those issues so that we can be more effective in our response?
mm. So what you guys are doing is obviously having an impact. It's obviously filling a void that's not really been filled before. Um, One thing that I personally um, just am in shock about is how many how many stories I've seen saying, "Oh, sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, it's a myth. It's not actually happening. It's a conspiracy theory. It's just a tool to enable one side of the political aisle to rally their people together." And then I meet people like yourself, and I meet. I'll never forget this conversation I had uh, back about a year ago when we were doing a lot of research, and we're in the process of pre-producing a feature film that we're aiming to have theatrical distribution on, and it's about this topic. It's a narrative film, and so we were interviewing survivors of this abuse of trafficking, and I sat down with a 60-ish year old gentleman who had been trafficked as a child. And he has now become a counselor, and he specifically helps children coming out of this trafficking environment. And we were sitting at a coffee shop in Austin, and he said, "Clay, within about 500 feet of us, there are at least 3 brothels." And I was like, "Come again? 500 feet?" And he said, "Yeah, that apartment there, that house over there." And I was just, I mean, I didn't even know how to respond to that. I'm like, "Well, let's go kick in some doors.
Right.
Let's bring an end to this."
Mhm.
Um, but obviously, that isn't necessarily the best path forward. Um, but let me get off my soapbox real quick. I'd love it if you could just walk us through. Is this a myth? Is this real? Is this truly as big of an issue as what you just talked about? What's the proof behind that?
Yeah, great question. I think what's so challenging is that there have been different organizations or entities that have worked to politicize this or to draw in conspiracy theories that honestly They invalidate the work that the field of anti-trafficking is doing
Mm.
on such important issues. And so when we are able to help people understand that these are vulnerable kids in our community, they're kids who might come from single family or single parent homes, or who have experienced a family with loss of income, who might be experiencing some sort of substance use. You start to unpack the vulnerabilities that exist in a lot of people's lives, and you can see where in that moment of desperation, somebody might say, okay, to their 13-year-old, we are either going to lose our apartment and we're going to be homeless, or the landlord of our property said that if you sleep with him, then you will get a month of rent free. And all of a sudden, something that feels so far away becomes really close to somebody when they're in this moment where somebody has the ability to exploit them for a desperate need. And that's what's so different, I think, about this crime than what most people realize, is traffickers are preying on a moment of vulnerability in your life. They don't need some elaborate story. We don't need the sensationalism of Hollywood. All we need is somebody to say that person has a need that can be met, and all I have to do is convince them that in order to meet that need, this is what they need to do. So it's mental coercion that's happening to these kids, and that's at every level. We've had cases, of course, that come from our vulnerable communities, and it's because of income disparity and challenges within the family dynamic. But we've also had cases where, a 14-year-old starts taking inappropriate pictures on her cell phone and distributing that to somebody that she's met online. And then as a result, her dad's high-powered career is going to be threatened. And so in order to protect her dad's career, she's willing to start doing in-person engagements with buyers because she feels like she's protecting her family.
Wow.
So again, it just shows that this is not as secretive as maybe the world perceives. Individuals are intersecting our community every single day. And these children are still in our schools. They're in our places of worship. They're in our grocery stores. They're on our basketball teams or soccer teams or in our dance classes. And when we start to see when a child's personality shifts or when they start to be more secretive or if they have unexplained gifts or things like that, we can pull the thread and say, where did that come from? Are you being asked to do something that you don't feel comfortable with? But honestly, we live in a very hypersexualized society, which is driving a demand that causes individuals in our community to be exploited every single day.
So I'm so grateful that you just said what you did, because most people, when they think of sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, they think of this group of people being brought in to the United States for the ability to have the freedom of the U.S. and then they don't get it. That's what is commonly, I would say, entering
Sure.
into someone's mind. But you mentioned the word exploitation, and that word, I think people disassociate from sex trafficking, right? It's
Yep.
exploitation is different. How can you kind of connect those dots for us?
Yes. So exploitation, when it comes to trafficking, can happen in a variety of ways. So it's really at its core, child sex trafficking is any time a child is forced to engage in commercial sex. And that exploitation could be online. That could be the production of child sexual abuse material and then distribution. Or it could be in-person engagements, and obviously the code in each state looks different based on legal frameworks, but that's really what it is at its core. And so we have to recognize that this is not a new crime. In all honesty, in 2018, the Department of State issued that the United States is one of the top 3 nations in the world for human trafficking, next to Mexico and the Philippines.
Wow.
And I will tell you that over 90% of our caseload are Americans. Yes, there is obviously those who are impacted that are foreign nationals. But when we really look at the crisis of child trafficking in the United States, it's our kids that are being exploited. And you might say, well, why? Well, the reality is that traffickers will tell you that they need a wide variety of product for buyers. So they want everything that looks like a polished teenager from upper middle class to somebody else from a different vulnerable community because they're attracted to different
Wow.
types of individuals. They're also going to be targeting different types of populations. You know, we serve a high number of individuals who may be deaf or have a disability. And again, these are just the ways that traffickers are exploiting and using people for financial gain and really finding the children who are the most vulnerable in our community.
Wow. Well, I don't know about you guys listening in, but that's a lot of heavy stuff, especially if this is the first time or the fifth time you're hearing
Mhm.
this. It's a lot to process. So it can be overwhelming. It can be exhausting to just even try to process through this. I mean, back when I was doing a lot of in-depth research, when we were evaluating all of the different groups that we were considering providing a grant to, I mean, I just felt like emotionally dead inside after hearing
Mhm.
all these stories. And I'm like, is there even any hope?
Right.
And I'd love to just hear from you about what Safe House Project's been doing and how you got it started and what current trajectory you're on. And I know there's some great news from this past quarter,
Yeah.
and things that are constantly happening that are positive. What was the number? 319.
319 survivors served in Q2 of 2024.
319 survivors served. Now, that number sounds small when you're thinking about the overarching problem, but I just want everyone to listen or to imagine for just a second. You're standing in a room with 319 people. Is that a small number then? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is huge. So obviously there's some sort of impact happening. So can you walk us through how we got to that point at Safe House Project?
Yeah, the past almost 7 years have been the most incredible years of my life and
Mm,
my co founders' lives. Even though this is a hard issue, we get to be on this side of hope and miracles
mm,
every single day. And there's oftentimes we hear people in the field say, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted. Of course, we all feel that at different moments. No matter what your profession is, you're going to feel exhausted. But when you get to be part of seeing a child who has experienced the worst of humanity step into a safe house program, be told you are known, seen, and
mm,
loved, not because of anything that you could ever do for anybody else, but just because you are a human being who
mm,
has value, dignity, and worth. Like, that is the most beautiful moment that you can imagine. And we get to be part of those stories every single day. Our team gets to talk with survivors and be there for people in their moment of crisis and honestly just say, how can I support you? How can I serve you? And it's in those interactions that we see so much shame and guilt fall off of people.
mm,
Just the knowledge that somebody cares for them and will be on the phone with them when they're stepping onto that flight to safety at 2 in the morning, or as
mm,
they're catching that Uber in that like 10 seconds of insane courage where they're
mm,
like, I'm going to run out this door and I'm going to trust that you're on the other end to catch me. Those are moments of miracles.
mm,
And that's what we get to do. And so it just seems to us that every year we're given more opportunities to do that for more individuals because honestly, success breeds success.
yeah.
So as one survivor exits, yes, that 319 can feel small, but imagine if each of those 319 survivors now goes back and tells 2 to 3 other survivors that they were
Mm,
being trafficked alongside. I reached out to Safe House Project and they were there to help me. You can trust them to do the work to get you to safety. The ripple effect
mm,
is incredible.
mm,
I always go back to the fact that one of our favorite stories is the story of Edler Lorenz. So he was a scientist in 1963, put forth a claim to the National Academy of Science around the butterfly effect.
mm,
And the idea that one butterfly can flap its wings and start a hurricane on the other side of the world.
mm,
And so we believe at our core that each person has the opportunity to flap their wings to see change on the other side of the world.
mm,
And I think that's what these survivors do every single day when they choose to exit or to reach out for help or ask for,
mm,
that support. they're flapping their wings and they're signaling to other survivors, we are safe to try to get out. Because for a long time, honestly, they weren't believed. But I believe there's a new day coming where people are believing survivors that they have experienced those really hard things. And as a result, survivors are also trusting that we as a community want to receive them, want to see them step into healing to be made whole. And I think that's the most beautiful part of our everyday.
Praise God. I love that. I love that. Okay, so there's obviously an impact. There's obviously a path for that impact. Let's talk a little bit about what is going on in a tangible way with inside of Safe House Project that is allowing that growth to happen. What is that catalyst that you've experienced in Safe House Project that brings about that success?
Yeah, I would say my favorite part internally is that I feel I get to be a leader of leaders. Our staff is excellent. They are a small but mighty force, and it's because they don't just see themselves as leaders in their roles and responsibilities internally. They recognize that they have to operate with excellence and urgency in all capacity to not only make sure that we're doing everything we can, but to signal to the field that they can trust us as partners to be there to do what we say we're going to do. So from everything from when we educate hospital networks and we say, yes, you can call us and we are going to help you with, once you've identified a child victim of trafficking, how do we get them to safety? We're not just going to give you a phone number and say good luck. We're going to say, how can we partner with you? How can we go through the assessments and the intakes and walk this journey alongside you? That builds such a bond of trust between us as partners. And then you have these care teams that end up wrapping around survivors. And that is so beautiful because it shows that we need each one of us doing our core function in order to see survivors served well. And so through that, our survivor support team just continues to flourish. I mean, right now they're carrying a caseload of 98 survivors that they are serving. And whenever he goes, well, that number doesn't seem so big or this or that, I'm like, okay, well, I have 2 children. And there are moments when 2 children feels like a lot every single day. And I'm like, now imagine having 98 children who have all experienced extreme trauma. I said, our team is so patient. They're so humble. They take the time to sit and really learn about these individuals, to hear what they want. And just that posture of saying, I have time for you, even though I have this massive caseload, it never translates. None of our survivors know how many people they're serving. They just feel like, you see me as the one. And I love that about our team. And so I think through that, that word has just gotten out. And it has brought more people to the table and more agencies saying, hey, we need your support. We need to be able to partner. And so it's great. It's fantastic to see how now communities are being shown that we can model success and we can scale this together, because it isn't just about Safe House Project. It's about all of these agencies working together to really support people holistically.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more tangibly from a nonprofit perspective, because very few nonprofits achieve the growth and success that you guys are currently achieving now, but on track to achieve as well. When it comes to breaking past those growth ceilings, I mean, there's numerous periods in a organizational growth where maybe you have to expand your staff or you have to expand your capacity to actually achieve your mission. What would you say has been maybe 1 or 2 strategies that you've used to help get there?
I think the first one is that it is prepare and plan and prepare.
Yeah.
So you're always in a season of preparation for what's to come. So I'm constantly, as the COO, reevaluating our internal structure for scale and growth and trying to say, okay, this is where we're at today, but what steps do we need to be taking intentionally? We don't need to, move too fast to get there, but what are those really intentional things that we need to do? And I think building infrastructure for scale is really important, because if you bring on people before you have the architecture of how you want to build an organization, people don't always know where they fit within the
Yeah.
larger vision of the entity. And so for us, it's been a lot about casting that big vision, having those strategic plans, but then honestly holding them loosely. So there's a lot of, we prepare, we plan, then we go back to the drawing table, but it's that we're constantly iterating. And I think a lot of that training and preparation for us, or for me personally, came out of having been in corporate America first. I feel really blessed that I was part of, doing mergers and acquisitions and seeing acquisition integration happen, where you're having to have multiple parts of a business operate effectively, both independently and together, to really drive that success forward. So that has been really important. I think the other thing that we are very protective of is our internal culture. And we would rather be slow to hire than make a bad hire, because we know that if drama or, just that negativity enters in, it can take something that's so beautiful and make it toxic really fast. And I think that's a challenge sometimes in nonprofit work, because the mission is so center, but at the same point, when everybody doesn't have the same buy-in to that mission, or thinks it should be done differently, or there's negativity swirling, there's also an entitlement piece that can come into that. Like, but I'm doing this mission-minded work, so I am entitled to my opinions. So we work really hard to try to identify members of our team who have a growth mindset, who have extreme ownership, and really aren't needing us to be the ones to propel them forward, but that they see the mission as the reason that they're getting up feeling motivated every morning. And so for us, it's about our people. So I think between infrastructure and people internally, those are the things that have really allowed for success. Externally, though, I think it really has come down to build trust and foster collaboration. You have to do what you're going to say you're going to do, whether that's hard or not. You do the right things, you're going to get the right results. And people want to trust you as a brand. And that is really important in nonprofit work. Your internal needs to match your external, and you need to be a trusted brand. And when that is there and people see your willingness to partner and not operate with a scarcity mindset around resources or donors or all of these things that we, of course, all need, then all of a sudden it breaks down the silos that can happen really easily in this work.
Wow. So when it comes to the measurement of growth, one thing that I've consistently seen in nonprofits is, hey, we don't even know if we're achieving our mission. Walk me through how you guys are accomplishing that.
I love data. I love data. It's like one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
And yes, I love data. I think everything should be measured and tracked. And it's probably to my team's dismay. But to me, you have to guide, obviously, based on mission and knowing who we are called to serve. But at the same point, data needs to inform those decisions. And so for us, we obviously track how many survivors we're serving, but it isn't just about getting them placed into a safe house program. It's about how well do they want to stay there? How long are they staying there? Are they flourishing? Like, our goal isn't just to get somebody out of a hard place. We want to see people flourishing. We want survivors to walk alongside them and see where they meet that, or realize that moment that they can dream again, that they can do incredible things in whatever capacity they choose. So that's a huge part for us. But then when it comes back to the other pieces, we try to measure how many people are we training, because if you're not educating people on the issue, then we're not moving the needle of that 1% identification rate. And if we're not moving that, then the capacity numbers shift and they change, and the business case for why these programs need to exist or why policy needs to happen isn't there. And so for us, data is what allows me to go into Congress or into a corporation and say, your so what is because the data shows us that your industry is intersecting this. If you're the hospitality sector and you have an opportunity to identify more individuals because they're using your property, don't you want to be part of
Mm,
protecting kids? And they jump in and they say yes. I mean, the
yeah.
American Hotel and Lodging Association has been a dear partner for a number of years because of their No Room for Trafficking
Mm,
campaign. And they want to see the places where trafficking happens in our communities, eradicated.
yeah.
And so when we're all guiding on those goals and we have the same metrics that we're using to measure that success, then we can speak a common language around are we achieving our goals, both as individual organizations, but also as a collective.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that leans so much into the concept of vision. You guys have a vision, clearly. You want to end trafficking by
Mm-hmm.
2030.
Yep,
That's a big goal.
it is.
Do you think that y'all are on track to achieving even a fraction of that because of that goal? Or do you
Yeah,
think that maybe it's a little bit of paralyzing?
I love an audacious goal.
Okay.
I think audacious goals keep me excited to get up every morning and really eliminate what most people think is impossible.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, I want to bust past the myths of human limitation and see us bring new solutions to this field. And I love the opportunity to look at other fields and other industries and say, what are they doing well? What are the things that they've had success in that we can apply to
Mm,
this field in a way that hasn't been done before? So to that end, we have been working with an incredible team of psychologists and mathematicians over the past year and a half, really to build a matrix based on the framework that the United States developed to identify terrorism. Like whenever
mm,
somebody goes from extremist to terrorist, how can we work to predict that through our federal agencies? Well, we took a lot of that same logic that team had worked to develop over decades and said, how can we reimagine that within the context of child trafficking?
mm,
How can we predict as somebody is engaging online with somebody they don't know,
mhm,
that this is escalating to the potential of trafficking? Well, through that, we've been able to really come up with really actionable solutions for how do people respond intentionally to suspected trafficking based on unique situations. That could be a camp counselor who hears a child talking about what, they're being asked to do on weekends. That could be an
mm,
educator. That could be a healthcare provider. But if we can give them their next step based on their current situation, they're going to feel so much more empowered and
mm,
equipped to report that suspected trafficking incident. Well, from that, we've now had the opportunity to work with a lot of great technologists and say, how can we use, in an ethical way and in a very intentional way, GPTs? How
mm,
can we use natural language processing and all of these new learning languages to really harness the power of technology to bring new solutions to the anti-trafficking field?
mm,
And so to me, what makes the idea of eradication and the framework of eradication achievable by 2030 is when each industry sees that they have a really important part to play.
mm.
And so I love that through just expanding what we think is possible and pulling on the expertise of individuals from other fields, that dream, I believe, can be realized.
I love it. Well, and you already touched on another question I was going to have, which is future goals.
Yes.
I love the fact that y'all are wanting to be on the leading edge of technology,
Hmm.
utilizing AI. You and I were talking a few weeks ago about how even in the medical space,
Hmm.
they're able to identify that now and have technology that is HIPAA compliant. I mean,
Yep.
that is huge.
Right.
To be able to be on that leading edge and bring about an end to human trafficking.
And I love that our team is still guiding on the belief that it has to be technology matched with a human-centric
Yeah,
response. So we're not saying that technology is going to take over and solve
it's not Minority
like,
Report.
no. But at the same point, if we can help assess data and gauge prevalence and see trends and really work to map the field differently than anybody ever has before, and then you match that with our survivor support team who is there to say, I see you, I know you, and we're going to do everything we can to get you to somewhere safe. all of a sudden you're harnessing the power of technology and people to really do something that nobody else has done in the nonprofit space on a public health crisis that has a very social justice lens as well.
I love it. I love it. Okay, only a couple more questions because I got the note from our producer that we're running up on time. So when it comes to the concept of good business, I mean, that's the show that we're on right now. How do you define success in the context of running a good business?
Yeah, so obviously mission is core. We really, your yes or your no is just as important as your yes. And so staying true to the mission that you have been called to is incredibly important because, again, it goes back to trust. Your partners trust what you tell them that you're going to do, and that is how you build relationship and build influence within your field. But beyond that, for us, it really goes back to our core values. To me, I ask every single person that we seek to hire or partner with, what does stewardship look like to you? Would you feel comfortable with anybody opening up your financials or your decision tree and assessing it? And to me, like I always tell my team, I'm like, we are going to be above reproach in everything that we do. I want any person, no matter what their position is or reason to know, to be able to say to us, what is your financial stewardship? What is your resource allocation and utilization? I don't want a lack of transparency to stand in the way of people feeling called to respond to a really important issue. And so I think stewardship obviously ties very deeply to our belief in integrity, that we all need to operate with the highest levels of integrity, and that's in your personal and professional lives, internally, externally. Those things need to match. And I think from that, we see a lot of collaboration, which is one of our core values, as well as hope. And everything comes back to that we have an audacious belief that child trafficking is that we can eradicate it by 2030. But we recognize that we also have to have audacious hope that that is possible and believe in the impossible.
I love it. I love it. Okay, two more questions. So you guys were the recipient of the 2024 Good Agency Grant Program. And as we look forward to the 2025 grant program, I'd love it if you could just share your experience so far. What's the benefit been so that anyone else who's considering applying for the grant for their organization could learn about that? Would you be willing to share a little bit?
Selfishly, I would like to say nothing positive about this because I just really want to keep you all to ourselves. But I know that's not fair. It has been honestly one of the biggest joys of this year for me and our team. I think that you hit a upper limit of what your team is possible of doing without really having to figure out a different way forward.
Yeah.
And the Good Agency grant just shattered the idea that needed to be sometime in the future, that we revisited a lot of our website marketing, all of these very important elements to growth, and the generosity of you and your team to just step in and accelerate something in a way that we didn't even know was possible was such a blessing, truly. And I love every member of your team. I kind of want them all. So just know I'm really going to be taking all of them home with me.
Okay.
But they're so wonderful.
You might have to arm wrestle
with.
over that a little bit.
You might. I mean, that or the motorcycle that's sitting over there. One of the two.
You can do that too.
I'll take one of them. But no, it's been so fantastic working alongside you all. Just you listen to us. You listen to our goals for the organization. I loved that we got to involve, survivors on our team in these conversations and in the production of video, and just make sure that everything we did was survivor informed. And you all let us really translate that and how important that is to us into the work that we get to do with you all. So I think everybody should apply, but I selfishly don't want them to.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Thank you for those kind words. What advice would you give to an organization that's considering applying if they're ready for working with us? What would you say to them? Well, let me rephrase that. What would you say is kind of a prerequisite for this being a successful engagement?
I think you have to be ready to say, okay, what we've done before probably isn't the most effective. You have to be humble at some level to say, I don't have ego in our logo or our brand. And at the end of the day, if you all come in and tell me based on your expertise, which is different than mine, that you think that we can more effectively translate our message in this way, or doing SEO over here is going to really positively impact your business, fantastic. Thank you. But I think you have to come in with a spirit of humility as to what you've done previously, saying, okay, that's where we were, but this is where we can go. I think the other piece is to really know who it is that you serve, because I think the value of what you all draw out through Story Brand and just the way that you helped us process our mission and our impact, you really need to know the impact of the work at a story level. And if you can't communicate that in even a amateur way at this point, I think it'd be more challenging to try to draw that out through the sessions.
Awesome. That's really good feedback. And I hope for anyone who's considering applying for a 2025 grant, please just take that to heart. We want this to be just as successful for you guys as it has been for Safe House. And ultimately, we chose you guys because we believed that of every single applicant, y'all were the ones that were going to be the biggest impact when it came to our investment, because we are in alignment. We want to see the end of human trafficking.
Yes,
and I'm excited to be a part of that with you guys. All right. So with that in mind, how can people get involved? How can people support the mission? And is there a way to tangibly understand the monetary requirements to actually bring an end? So I think y'all have even quantified it to a certain number of dollars to bring about a rescue of some sort, or not a rescue, but pulling someone out. I know I'm not supposed to use that language. So do you want to speak life into that at all?
Yeah, of course. Like every organization, we need donations in order to do the work that we do. For us, we see that it's roughly $250 to get that flight out, around anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 to really execute an entire exit of somebody from their trafficking situation and getting them to safety. But there's so many pieces. Like if the $1,500 number is too big for you, we have to get them food. Getting people food, it costs money, and getting them a safe place to stay until the Safe House program can accept requires investment. So every single day our team has the opportunity to make sure those very tangible needs of somebody in crisis are met. And honestly, it's those small acts of kindness that really go the furthest to building trust. When we can say, let me give you a safe place to just be tonight and get some rest. That might be the first time they've slept in a few days. That might be the first meal that they've had that isn't junk food from a truck stop. And that allows for that early stabilization to happen, for us to enter into those heart conversations that say, okay, now it's time to plan the future. What does a Safe House program mean to you? Where are you going to feel the most successful? How can we support you in truly flourishing as just a beautiful child of God? And so those are the beautiful moments. Of course, sharing our message is another really important way to participate. We need to increase identification. We need more people to understand that this isn't conspiracy theories, but that this is an issue that's affecting, 300,000 American kids every single year. This is an issue that we have to have all eyes on, and if we do want to eradicate it. So that's an all hands on deck effort. So to learn more about us and the work that we get to do, you can visit safehouseproject.org, as well as visit any of the links below, because we just invite you to be part of this movement.
Love it. Well, Brittany, thanks again for making the hike all the way down across the country. And your husband recently returned from overseas, right?
He did. 10-month deployment down. It was wonderful.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. Get back home to him, and thank you so much for sharing this time with us. And for everyone else, thank you for tuning in. I hope you were encouraged, that you have clarity about this issue and what needs to be done to bring an end to child sex trafficking. And I'd encourage you, get involved. Go to Safe House Project's website. Go read all the content, watch the videos, learn about the impact that's being made made and get involved. Donate. She was very kind about it. I'm going to say, I want you to go give money to them right now because they are making an impact. And honestly, $1,500 to save a child, like literally save a child from sex trafficking. Please go and get involved. So with that in mind, thanks for hanging out with us at Good Business today, and we'll see you guys next time. And once again, don't forget to hit that like button. Share this with friends, family, or anyone you believe would be positively impacted by this message, and we'll see you guys next time.